Marcus Chen's hands were covered in blood. Thor's blood, as he slammed through the emergency room doors at 2:47 a.m. The Belgian Malinois wasn't breathing. "Help him!" Marcus screamed, his voice cracking in a way it never had during 3 combat deployments. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez looked up from her desk, saw the limp war dog, and her face went white. She'd seen death before. This looked like death. But Marcus Chen was a Navy SEAL who'd survived the impossible, and he wasn't about to let his brother die tonight. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the end of this incredible story. Comment below with your city so we can see how far Thor's journey reaches across the world. Marcus didn't wait for permission. He kicked open the door to the examination room and laid Thor on the steel table with a gentleness that contradicted the violence in his eyes. The dog's tongue hung blue-gray from his mouth. No chest movement. No response. What happened? Dr. Rodriguez was already pulling on gloves, her movements automatic despite the shock. "Poison. Park near my house. 20 minutes ago." Marcus's words came in combat, short bursts. "He was fine. Then he wasn't. Convulsions. Foam. Now this." Sarah pressed her stethoscope against Thor's chest. The silence that greeted her was wrong. She'd been an emergency veterinarian for 15 years, and she knew death when she heard it. Or rather, when she didn't hear it. "Get me epinephrine atropine and start bagging him. I know CPR." Marcus was already positioning his hands over Thor's chest, the same hands that had performed it on teammates in Kandahar and Mosul, in places whose names were still classified. "Not for dogs, you don't. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, different pressure points. Then show me." Sarah did. They fell into rhythm. Her calling counts him compressing with controlled force. 1 minute. 2. 3. The heart monitor showed nothing but a flat line screaming across the screen. "Come on, Thor. Come on, brother." Marcus's voice dropped to something private, something Sarah wasn't meant to hear. "You don't get to quit on me. Not here. Not like this." Sarah injected epinephrine directly into Thor's heart. Nothing. She tried atropine. Nothing. She looked at the clock, 5 minutes since they'd started. Brain damage became irreversible after 6 minutes without oxygen. They were running out of time. "We need to call it," she said quietly. "No. I'm sorry, but I said no." Marcus's eyes met hers, and she saw something there she'd never seen in a client before. This wasn't a man who'd lost a pet. This was a soldier who'd lost his brother. The doors burst open. 3 men rushed in, moving with the same predatory grace as Marcus. They took in the scene in seconds, the flat line, the desperate CPR, the dying dog. "Jesus, Mark." The first man, African-American, built like a linebacker carrying a tactical medical bag, crossed to the table. "When? 8 minutes ago, Jackson. He's not coming back." Jackson dropped the bag and started pulling out equipment Sarah had never seen in a veterinary clinic. Military-grade supplies. Combat medical gear. "Like hell he's not." Jackson looked at Sarah. "Ma'am, I need you to step back. This is my hospital. And that's our brother on your table." The second man, Hispanic, wire-thin, intense eyes, was already setting up an IV line with fluid Sarah didn't recognize. "We've got field experience with trauma protocols you won't find in any textbook." The third man, Korean-American, quiet, carrying more bags, began unpacking what looked like a portable combat surgical unit. "You can't just—" Sarah started. Marcus grabbed her arm. Not rough, but firm. "Dr. Rodriguez, I know this is crazy. I know it's not protocol. But Thor saved my life in Afghanistan. He's pulled 3 IEDs that would have killed my entire unit. He took shrapnel meant for a convoy of Marines. He's earned the same chance we'd give any operator who went down. He's a dog. He's a SEAL." Sarah stared at him. At them. These weren't pet owners mourning a loss. These were warriors refusing to leave a man behind. "What are you planning to do?" Jackson looked up from the bag. "Tactical combat casualty care. It's designed for human battlefield trauma, but the physiology is similar enough. We've seen field medics use modified versions on working dogs downrange. That's not approved for veterinary use. Neither is letting a war hero die when we have the skills to save him." Ramirez, the thin one, had the IV in, now pushing fluids that made the heart monitor spike slightly before flatlining again. Sarah made a decision she'd probably regret, or maybe the only decision she could live with. "What do you need from me?" Marcus's expression shifted relief, gratitude, hope. "Everything you know about canine cardiac physiology, we'll handle the rest." They worked. God, they worked like a machine. Jackson called out medications and dosages. Ramirez monitored vitals with equipment that had probably cost more than Sarah's entire clinic. Kim, the quiet one, had a laptop open video call running with someone in military uniform. "Doc, we've got a canine down poison exposure cardiac arrest. How much EP can his system handle?" The face on the screen, an older man with captain's bars, didn't hesitate. "Double the civilian dose. His heart can take it. What's the toxin? Unknown. Presenting like organophosphate, but faster. Try pralidoxime. Military dose, not civilian." When Marcus was still doing compressions, sweat pouring down his face. His arms had to be screaming, but he didn't slow. 10 minutes. 12. 15. "Mark, let me take over," Jackson said. "No." "You're going to collapse." "I said no." Marcus's voice broke. "I was holding his leash, Jack. I was right there. I should have seen it. Should have stopped him from eating whatever it was." Sarah understood then. This wasn't just about saving a dog. This was about a man trying to save himself from the guilt of failing to protect someone he loved. "It's not your fault," she said. "You don't know that. I know poison. I know how fast some toxins work. If he ate something in that park, there was nothing you could have done differently. I could have been faster getting him here. You were fast enough. He's still got a chance because of you." Ramirez called out, "Pressure's rising, slightly." Everyone froze. The monitor showed the tiniest change. Not normal, not even close, but not flat either. "Again," Jackson ordered, prepping another syringe. "Mark compressions. Sarah, bag him. Harder this time. His lungs are bigger than you think." They synchronized. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Jackson injected something else, the pralidoxime the video doctor had recommended. Kim was typing notes, recording everything they tried. "Why are you documenting this?" Sarah asked between breaths. "Because if it works," Kim said without looking up, "other dogs shouldn't have to die from what we learned saving Thor." 20 minutes. The textbooks said it was impossible. The science said brain death was irreversible. But the monitor, "I've got rhythm," Ramirez shouted. It was faint, irregular, but it was there. Marcus stopped compressions, his hands shaking. Thor, buddy, come on." The dog's chest rose, barely, but it rose. "He's breathing," Sarah whispered. She'd seen miracles in her career, but nothing like this. Jackson was already adjusting IV drips, switching to maintenance medications. "Not out of the woods, not even close. We need to identify the toxin, get him stabilized, watch for organ failure." The window exploded. Everyone hit the floor on instinct. Sarah screamed. The SEALs had weapons drawn before she realized they'd been carrying concealed. "Sniper." Marcus was covering Thor's body with his own. "Negative," but Kim was at the window scanning. "Brick. Someone threw a brick." Ramirez checked the parking lot through the blinds. 2 vehicles. Circling. This isn't random, Mark." Marcus's jaw tightened. Lock it down. Now." "What's happening?" Sarah demanded. "Someone doesn't want Thor to survive." Marcus turned to her, and his expression was ice-cold combat focus. "Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to trust me. We're not just fighting to save Thor from poison. We're fighting to save him from whoever poisoned him." "You think someone did this deliberately?" "I know they did." Jackson held up a syringe of Thor's blood. "Kim run this against the database. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." Kim took the sample to his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. The seconds stretched. Sarah watched the heart monitor. Thor's rhythm was strengthening, but he was still unconscious, still critical. "Got it." Kim's face went pale. "VX derivative, military grade, chemical weapon." The room went silent. "That's not possible," Sarah said. That's what they use to assassinate people, high-level targets. It's not something you just find." "Exactly." Marcus stood checking his weapon. "This wasn't an accident. Someone wants us dead." "Who?" "Long list. We've made enemies." Ramirez swore in Spanish. "The Syria op. Has to be." "That was 3 years ago. And Kozlov escaped from Leavenworth 2 months ago. You really think that's coincidence?" Sarah's head was spinning. "Who's Kozlov?" "Arms dealer," Marcus said flatly. "Thor found his weapons cache outside Damascus, led to his arrest conviction life sentence. Apparently life doesn't mean what it used to." Another window shattered. This time Sarah saw the brick sail through, wrapped in paper. Kim grabbed it, unwrapped the note. His expression darkened. "The dog dies tonight. You're next." "Professional." Jackson was at the other window. "They're establishing a perimeter, trying to scare us into running." "They don't know who they're dealing with," Ramirez said. Marcus holstered his weapon and returned to Thor's side. "Sarah, I need you to make a choice. You can leave right now, call the police, distance yourself from this. Or you can stay and help us save Thor, while we figure out how to keep everyone in this building alive." Sarah looked at the unconscious dog, at the broken windows, at these 4 men who'd turned her quiet night shift into a war zone. The smart choice was obvious. Call 911. Get out. Let the professionals handle it. But she'd spent 15 years saving animals everyone else had given up on. She'd done surgery in her car during hurricanes. She'd treated injured wildlife while their mothers circled. She didn't run from hard cases. "I'm staying, but I'm calling the police." "Don't." Kim held up his phone. "Already done. FBI is en route. This is federal now. Chemical weapons escaped federal prisoner assault on veterans." "How did you—" "I made the call while you were bagging Thor. We're SEALs, ma'am. We don't wait for permission to protect our own." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay. Then tell me what you need." "Keep Thor alive," Marcus said. "Everything else we'll handle." The next hour was chaos. FBI arrived in force surrounding the building. The 2 circling vehicles vanished before they could be intercepted. Thor's condition stabilized, then crashed, then stabilized again. Sarah had never worked under these conditions, armed federal agents in her clinic, SEALs rotating guard duty, a patient fighting off one of the deadliest poisons ever created. Jackson was running blood work every 15 minutes. "Liver enzymes are climbing. Kidneys are stressed. He's fighting, but the VX is breaking down his systems." "Can you counteract it?" Sarah asked. "We've given him everything we've got. Now it's up to Thor." Jackson looked at Marcus, who hadn't left the dog's side. "Mark, you need to rest." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've been awake for 36 hours, you've done CPR for 20 minutes straight, and you're running on adrenaline and rage. Take a break." "When Thor's stable, he won't be stable for days, maybe weeks. If you collapse, you can't help him." Marcus shook his head. "I was holding his leash, Jack. I watched him eat something in that park, thought it was just grass or a dead leaf. I laughed. I actually laughed and told him to stop eating garbage." His voice cracked. "How do I rest knowing I let this happen?" Sarah moved closer. Marcus, I need you to hear me. I've treated hundreds of poisoning cases. VX works in seconds. If Thor ate it and you got him here within 20 minutes, that's not failure. That's the only reason he's alive. Is he alive? Really, look at him. Thor lay motionless, except for the mechanical rise and fall of his chest from the ventilator. Tubes ran from his legs. Monitors beeped steadily, but weakly. He looked more dead than alive. His heart's beating, Sarah said. That's more than we had an hour ago. That's more than any dog has survived with this toxin. You did that. An FBI agent approached a woman in her 40s, all business. Lieutenant Chen Special Agent Morrison, I need your statement about what happened tonight. Marcus gave it to her in clipped military precision. The walk in the park. Thor's sudden collapse, the 20-minute race to the clinic. He left out nothing admitted to every second of delay, every choice that might have been wrong. Morrison listened without interrupting. When he finished, she closed her notebook. Lieutenant, I've read your file. Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. 3 bronze stars, 2 purple hearts, more classified commendations than I'm cleared to know about. You're a hero. I'm the guy who let his dog get poisoned. You're the guy who kept his head under chemical weapon attack and saved his partner's life using battlefield medicine. Most people would have panicked. You executed. It wasn't enough. It was enough to keep him breathing until help arrived. That counts. Morrison glanced at Thor. We're analyzing the park. Early results show VX planted in meat hidden in the grass. Professional work. Whoever did this knew Thor's route, knew his habits. They've been watching us, Marcus said quietly. For weeks, probably. We found surveillance photos in a vehicle abandoned 2 blocks from here. You, Thor, your team, your homes, your routines. Ramirez swore. Kozlov, we're working that angle, but Lieutenant, there's something else. Morrison pulled out a tablet, showed them photos. 3 other retired canines have died in the past 6 weeks. Different cities, different handlers. All ruled natural causes at first. We're exhuming them now. You think they were murdered too? Jackson asked. I think someone is systematically targeting retired military working dogs and their handlers. Thor is the first one to survive, which means whoever's doing this will try again. Sarah's blood went cold. They'll come back. They will, Morrison confirmed. Which is why I'm posting armed guards on this clinic until we can move Thor to a secure facility. He can't be moved, Sarah said immediately. Not in this condition. The stress alone could kill him. Then we secure this location. Morrison looked at Marcus. Your team good with that? We're not leaving, Marcus said. Didn't figure you would. Morrison turned to Sarah. Dr. Rodriguez, I'm sorry your clinic has become a target. We'll do everything we can to protect you and your staff. I'm the only staff on night shift, and I'm not going anywhere either. Morrison almost smiled. SEALs have a saying. The only easy day was yesterday. Looks like you're learning it firsthand, Doc. The night dragged on. Thor's vitals remained critical, but steady. Kim coordinated with the military veterinarian on video-adjusting treatments as new symptoms emerged. The VX was breaking down, but slowly leaving damage in its wake. Around 5 a.m., Ramirez brought coffee from somewhere. Sarah didn't ask where. She drank it gratefully, watching the sunrise through the broken windows. You do this often? She asked Marcus. The impossible rescue thing. Only when it matters. Thor matters. Thor he's the reason I'm alive. Not just in Afghanistan. Here too. After I came home. Marcus stared at the dog, his expression raw. I had a hard time adjusting. Really hard. Nightmares, flashbacks, the whole PTSD playlist. Couldn't hold a job. Couldn't maintain relationships. Was drinking too much, sleeping too little? He paused, his jaw working. Then they offered me Thor, retired him into my care, Said we could help each other adjust. I thought it was stupid. What's a dog going to do for combat trauma? But it worked, Sarah guessed. It saved me. Having someone who needed me, who depended on me, it gave me purpose. And Thor, he understood. He'd wake me from nightmares, calm me during panic attacks. He never judged, never asked questions, just stayed close. That's what they do best. He does it better than most people. Marcus reached out, gently touched Thor's paw. I owe him everything. So yeah, I'll use every crazy technique break, every rule fight, whoever I have to fight. Because he's earned it. Sarah understood. She'd gone into veterinary medicine because animals gave everything and asked for so little in return. They loved, unconditionally trusted completely, forgave endlessly. Thor had saved Marcus in ways no metal could recognize. He's going to make it, she said with more confidence than she felt. How do you know? Because he's got you. And if you're half as stubborn as you seem, death doesn't stand a chance. Marcus almost smiled. It didn't last, but it was there. An alarm beeped. Thor's heart rate spiked. Seizure. Jackson was at the table, instantly injecting anticonvulsants. Mark, hold him gently. Don't let him hurt himself. Marcus pinned Thor's convulsing body with practiced care. The dog's legs kicked his jaw, clamped tight. Sarah had seen seizures before, but never in a patient this critical. How long? Marcus demanded. 30 seconds. Normal for neurotoxin exposure. Should stop soon. It didn't stop. 45 seconds. A minute. Thor's body was destroying itself from the inside. He's not responding. Jackson prepared another injection. Sarah, I need diazepam, 5 milligrams. That'll suppress his breathing. He's already on a ventilator. Do it. Sarah grabbed the medication hands, shaking. She'd never pushed sedatives on a patient this unstable. But Jackson was right. If they didn't stop the seizure, Thor would stroke out. She injected, waited, prayed. The convulsions slowed, stopped. Thor went limp. The heart monitor flatlined. No! Marcus started compressions again, but Jackson grabbed his arms. Wait. Wait! The line jumped. Once, twice, settled into rhythm. He's there, Jackson breathed. Still with us. Marcus collapsed against the table, his whole body shaking. Sarah realized he was crying silent, terrible sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. I can't lose him, Marcus whispered. I can't. Not him. Jackson gripped his shoulder. You won't. Look at him, Mark. He's fighting. For you. Because that's what brothers do. The sun was fully up now. Sarah's day shift would arrive in 2 hours. How was she going to explain any of this? The FBI agents, the broken windows, the Navy SEALs running an unauthorized field hospital in her clinic. Her phone buzzed. Text from her supervisor. Saw the news. FBI at your location. Are you okay? Sarah typed back. Long story, very okay. Saving a life. Another text. Need backup. She looked at Marcus Jackson Ramirez and Kim, at Thor still breathing against impossible odds, at the armed FBI agents securing the perimeter. I've got all the backup I need, she replied. By 8 a.m., Thor's condition had improved marginally but measurably. His blood work showed the VX metabolizing. His organs were stressed but functioning. His brain activity was normal. Against every textbook, every protocol, every reasonable medical expectation, he was surviving. Morrison returned with updates. We've identified Kozlov's location. Apartment in Baltimore. Team is moving in now. Is he behind this? Marcus asked. Won't know until we have him in custody. But Lieutenant, there's something you should know. We found evidence he didn't work alone. The surveillance, the VX deployment, the coordinated timing, that's not one escaped convict. That's an organization. Who? We're still investigating. But the other K-9's deaths, the handlers were all from the same unit, your unit. The one that took down Kozlov's weapons ring in Syria. Ramirez looked at Jackson. They're eliminating witnesses. Not just witnesses. Operators. They're taking out the team that cost them millions in weapons sales. Kim was already on his laptop. Mark, we need to warn the others. Stevens, Rodriguez, Kim. I'm already Kim, Kim said. Other Kim. Sarah Kim, handler for Duchess. She's in Oregon now. Call her. Warn everyone. Marcus looked at Morrison. How do we stop this? You let us do our job. FBI hostage rescue is coordinating with military CID. We'll find whoever's behind this. And until then, you keep your heads down and let Thor heal. Marcus shook his head. We're SEALs. We don't hide. You're also targets with a critically ill dog. Be smart, Lieutenant. Before Marcus could argue, Thor whimpered. It was the first sound he'd made since arriving. Everyone froze. Thor! Marcus was at his side. Buddy, can you hear me? The dog's eyelids fluttered. Didn't open but moved. He's regaining consciousness, Sarah said, checking his pupils. That's remarkable. Most dogs with this level of exposure don't wake up for days if they wake up at all. He's not most dogs, Jackson said quietly. Thor whimpered again, a soft, pained sound that broke Sarah's heart. It's okay, buddy. You're okay. I'm here. Marcus's voice was gentle. The warrior gone, just a man talking to his best friend. Rest. We've got you. You're safe. Thor's breathing settled. The whimpering stopped. But he'd been there present, aware, fighting. Morrison watched the exchange with something like awe. That bond, that's what they're afraid of. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Military working dogs and their handlers, they're the most effective detection teams we have. Better than any technology. They've cost criminal organizations billions in intercepted shipments, exposed operations, prevented attacks. If someone's trying to eliminate that capability by going after retired teams, they're sending a message, Marcus finished. Stay away from our business, or we'll kill what you love most. It won't work, Jackson said flatly. We don't negotiate with terrorists and we don't back down from threats. I know, which is why I need you to let us handle this. You focus on Thor. We'll focus on keeping you alive. But Sarah saw Marcus's expression and knew he wasn't going to wait for the FBI to solve this. These were men of action. Sooner or later, they'd take the fight to whoever had tried to kill their brother. She just hoped Thor would be strong enough to survive what came next. Thor's second night in the clinic brought complications nobody anticipated. His kidney function crashed at 11 p.m., sending Jackson and Sarah into emergency mode, while Marcus paced like a caged animal, and Ramirez coordinated with 3 different military veterinary specialists via satellite phone. We need dialysis equipment, Sarah said, her hands moving rapidly across Thor's abdomen, feeling for the swelling she knew was there. His body can't filter the toxin breakdown fast enough. Nearest veterinary dialysis is 2 hours away in Richmond, Jackson said, already pulling up maps on his tablet. He won't survive transport. Then we bring the equipment here. Marcus grabbed his phone. Kim, call Walter Reed. Tell them we need their portable renal support system, the one they use for combat casualties. Kim didn't question it. He just dialed. That's for humans, Sarah protested. Kidneys are kidneys. We'll adapt it. Marcus turned to her, his eyes red from exhaustion, but burning with determination. You said yourself the physiology is similar. We've already broken every rule. What's one more? Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to say this was insane, that they couldn't just commandeer military medical equipment for a dog, that there were protocols and procedures and liability issues. But Thor's numbers were dropping, and her options were watch him die or try something unprecedented. How fast can they get it here? 40 minutes, Kim called out. They're loading it now. Military escort. 40 minutes felt like 40 hours. Thor's breathing became labored even with the ventilator. His temperature spiked. Toxins were building in his blood, poisoning him from the inside despite everything they'd done. Marcus sat beside the table, holding Thor's paw, talking to him in a low, steady voice. Remember Kandahar, buddy? That market raid where you found the IED under the vegetable cart? You saved 20 Marines that day. 20 kids who got to go home because you did your job. Mark, he can't hear you, Ramirez said gently. You don't know that. When I was wounded in Mosul, unconscious for 3 days, I heard everything. Jack reading me reports, you telling terrible jokes, the chaplain praying. I heard it all. Marcus stroked Thor's head. He hears me. He knows I'm here. Sarah checked the monitors again. Thor's creatinine levels were climbing into dangerous territory. If the dialysis equipment didn't arrive soon, they'd lose him to kidney failure after surviving the VX. Her phone rang. The supervisor again. Sarah, the medical board wants answers. You've got FBI agents, military personnel, and unauthorized equipment in your clinic. They're threatening to suspend your license. Let them. Silence on the other end. What? I said, let them suspend it. I'm saving a war hero who's given more to this country than most humans ever will. If the board has a problem with that, they can take it up with me after he's stable. Sarah. This dog has a bronze star. He's detected explosives that saved hundreds of lives. He's earned the best care we can give him, and I'm going to give it whether the board approves or not. She hung up. Marcus was staring at her. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did. You were right earlier. Thor's a SEAL. He deserves to be treated like one. The dialysis equipment arrived in 38 minutes. 2 Army medics wheeled it in, took one look at Thor, and started setting up without questions. They'd seen the photos, read the reports. They knew what this dog meant. Okay, we've never done this on a canine, the senior medic admitted. But the principles are the same. Filter the blood, remove the toxins, return clean blood to the body. Access points, Sarah asked. Femoral vein, same as humans. You'll need to place the catheter. Sarah had done it 100 times, but never on a patient this critical, never with this much riding on it. Her hands shook as she prepped the site. Doc, you good? Jackson asked quietly. No, but I'm doing it anyway. The catheter went in clean. The dialysis machine hummed to life. Blood began flowing through the filters, dark with toxins, returning clearer. Not clean, but clearer. Everyone watched the monitors. 15 minutes passed. 20. Thor's creatinine started dropping. It's working, Sarah breathed. His pressure's stabilizing too, one of the Army medics reported. Heart rate improving. This might actually work. Marcus closed his eyes, and Sarah saw his lips moving in what might have been prayer or might have been a promise. With this man, it was hard to tell the difference. 2 hours into dialysis, Thor's eyes opened. Not fully, not alert, but open, aware, present. He saw Marcus and made a sound, not quite a whimper, not quite a whine, just recognition. Hey, brother, Marcus's voice cracked. Welcome back. Thor tried to lift his head, and couldn't. The effort exhausted him, and his eyes closed again. But he'd been there. He'd fought back to consciousness one more time. That's not medically possible, one of the Army medics whispered. The amount of VX in his system, the organ damage, the seizures, he shouldn't be conscious for days. Thor doesn't do what he should, Jackson said with something like pride. He does what needs to be done. Morrison arrived at 3 a.m. with news nobody wanted to hear. We hit Kozlov's apartment. It was empty. Cleared out hours before we arrived. Someone tipped him off, Ramirez said immediately. We're investigating, but there's more. We found evidence linking him to a defense contractor called Meridian Solutions. They were one of the companies bidding on the weapon systems your team exposed in Syria. Marcus's jaw tightened. Meridian lost billions when that contract got pulled. They blamed us. With reason. Your operation didn't just stop one arms deal. It exposed systemic corruption in their entire supply chain. 15 executives went to prison. The company declared bankruptcy. Good. They were arming terrorists. Agreed. But the company's gone, not the people who ran it. We're finding connections between former Meridian executives and these K9 attacks. This isn't just Kozlov seeking revenge. It's organized, funded, and personal. Kim looked up from his laptop. How many targets? 12 confirmed. All K9 handlers from your Syria unit. 3 are already dead. We confirmed poison in the exhumed bodies. Thor makes 4. That leaves 8 handlers and their dogs still at risk. We need to warn them, Marcus said. Already done. FBI is offering protective custody. They won't take it. We're not the protective custody type. Morrison smiled grimly. I know, which is why I'm offering an alternative. Bring them here. Secure location military support, best medical care available. We protect them while we hunt down everyone involved. This clinic can't hold 12 K9s and their handlers, Sarah protested. Not suggesting it does. Walter Reed is preparing a secure wing, but Thor can't be moved yet, so you're our staging ground until he's stable enough for transport. How long? Sarah checked Thor's latest labs. The dialysis was helping, but slowly. His organs were badly damaged. Moving him now would be a death sentence. 3 days minimum, maybe 5. Then we hold here for 5 days. Morrison looked at Marcus. Your team good with that? Do we have a choice? There's always a choice, Lieutenant. You could walk away, let us handle it. Trust the system. Marcus glanced at Thor, still fighting on that table, still refusing to quit. We don't walk away from brothers. Never have, never will. Didn't think so. Morrison pulled out her phone. I'll coordinate with Walter Reed. In the meantime, expect company. Your team's coming home. Over the next 6 hours, they arrived. Sarah had never seen anything like it. These weren't pet owners checking on their animals. These were warriors assembling for battle, and they brought their battle-scarred partners with them. Stevens came first, tall African-American woman with a German shepherd named Axe, who was missing his left rear leg from an IED in Mosul. The dog limped into the clinic, saw Thor, and lay down beside the table like he was mounting guard. How is he? Stevens asked Marcus. Alive? Barely. But alive. That's all Thor needs. He'll do the rest. She looked at Sarah. Ma'am Axe has some medical needs. War injuries. Is it okay if he stays close to Thor? They served together. Might help. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. She'd never seen a dog mount guard over a fallen comrade before. Next came Rodriguez, no relation to Sarah, a stocky Hispanic man with a Belgian Malinois named Havoc. The dog had burn scars across his shoulders from a building collapse in Kabul. Heard Thor went down hard, Rodriguez said to Marcus. Also heard he's too stubborn to stay down. You heard right. Good. Havoc and we owe Thor. Fallujah 2019. Thor found the secondary IED that would have taken us both out. We're here as long as you need us. They kept coming. Sarah Kim arrived with Duchess, a smaller Malinois with a torn ear and eyes that had seen too much. Chen, another Chen, no relation to Marcus, brought Odin a massive German shepherd with a pronounced limp. Baker showed up with Freya, a Dutch shepherd, who'd lost most of her teeth to a Taliban fighter's rifle butt, but could still detect explosives better than any machine. By dawn, Sarah's clinic looked like a military forward operating base. 8 K9s and their handlers, plus Marcus's team, plus FBI agents, plus the army medics still monitoring the dialysis. Her examination room had become a war room. This is insane, she told Jackson. I run a civilian veterinary clinic, not a SEAL team safe house. You run whatever needs running, Doc. And right now these dogs and their people need you." Jackson gestured to the canines, all lying in a protective circle around Thor's table. "Look at them. They know one of their own is down. They're not leaving until he's up." Sarah looked. Axe with his missing leg, Havoc with his burns, Duchess with her torn ear, Odin limping, Freya with her broken teeth. Every one of them carried visible scars from their service, and probably invisible ones too. "What happened to them over there?" she asked quietly. "They did their jobs, saved lives. Some paid a higher price than others, but they all paid." Jackson's voice was soft, reverent. "These aren't pets, Doc, they're veterans. They've earned every medal their human partners wear, even if the medals don't officially exist." Thor's vitals spiked again. Sarah was at the table, instantly checking the dialysis flow, adjusting medications. His temperature was climbing despite the cooling measures. His heart rhythm was irregular. "What's happening?" Marcus demanded. "Sepsis. His immune system is crashing. The VX damaged his white blood cells, and now infection is setting in." Sarah was already drawing blood for cultures. "I need broad-spectrum antibiotics, IV immunoglobulins if you can get them, and..." "Done," when Kim was on the phone before she finished. "Walter Reed is sending everything. 20 minutes. But 20 minutes might be too long. Thor's pressure was dropping. The other canines sensed it, started whining, pressing closer to the table. "They know," Stevens said. "They know he's slipping." Marcus leaned close to Thor's ear. "Don't you dare quit on me. You hear me? We've got 8 of your brothers here. They came because of you. They believe in you. I believe in you." Thor's breathing hitched. "That's right, buddy. Fight. Show them what a SEAL does when the mission gets hard. We adapt. We overcome. We never, ever quit." Ramirez joined in. "Remember Somalia, Thor? When we were pinned down for 6 hours, and you stayed alert the whole time, never complained, never stopped scanning for threats. You saved us then. Let us save you now." The other handlers started talking too, sharing stories. The time Thor found explosives hidden in a child's toy. The ambush he detected before it sprung. The Marine he pulled from a burning Humvee. Every handler had a story, a moment when Thor's service had mattered. And somehow, impossibly, Thor's vitals stabilized. Sarah checked the monitors 3 times, convinced she was reading them wrong. But no, his pressure was rising. His heart rhythm was steadying. His temperature was dropping. "What did you do?" she asked Marcus. Reminded him why he fights. Marcus's eyes were wet. "We all need that sometimes. A reason to keep going when everything says quit." The antibiotics arrived. Sarah administered them along with the immunoglobulins and a cocktail of other medications that would have killed a healthy dog but might save a dying one. The Army medics adjusted the dialysis parameters. Jackson monitored the IV fluids. Hour by hour, Thor clawed his way back from the edge. By noon, he was breathing on his own, still on oxygen support, but the ventilator was off. By 2 p.m., his kidney function had improved enough to reduce the dialysis frequency. By 4 p.m., he opened his eyes and kept them open for a full minute. "He's going to make it," Sarah said, hardly believing her own words. "Against every medical probability, every scientific expectation, he's going to make it." Marcus didn't respond. He was crying too hard. The celebration was short-lived. Morrison returned with more bad news. "We've identified the main players. Former Meridian executives hired Kozlov after his escape, recruited a team of mercenaries. They're not just targeting K9s anymore." "What do you mean?" Jackson asked. "They've escalated. 2 hours ago, someone tried to breach Walter Reed's secure wing, the wing where we were planning to move your teams." Every handler went rigid. "Casualties?" Marcus asked. 3 security guards injured, but they held the line. The attackers retreated, but they made their point. Nowhere is safe. "Then we make our stand here," Stevens said flatly. We've got 8 operators, 8 canines, and a civilian doctor who's tougher than half the Marines I've served with. If they want to fight, we'll give them one." Morrison started to protest, but Sarah cut her off. "She's right. Moving Thor now would kill him, and I'm not abandoning my clinic because someone threatens us. This is my ground. I stand on it. You're a veterinarian, not a soldier. I'm a person who takes care of those who can't take care of themselves. That includes Thor, and it includes every canine in this building. So unless you're planning to arrest me, Agent Morrison, I suggest you work with us instead of against us." Morrison stared at her for a long moment, then smiled. "You know what I like you, Doc. Okay, we do it your way. FBI will secure the perimeter, but inside these walls, you're in command." "The hell she is," Marcus said. "No offense, Doc, but you're not trained for combat." "Then train me. You've got—" Sarah checked her watch, approximately 60 hours before they try again. "Teach me enough to not get myself killed." Ramirez laughed. "I like her too. She's got operator mentality." "She's got a death wish," Jackson muttered, but he was smiling. For the next 2 days, Sarah's clinic became something out of a movie. The handlers ran security rotations. The canines, even the injured ones, patrolled in shifts, their senses far better than any technology. Morrison's FBI team fortified the building, and Sarah learned basic tactical awareness from people who'd survived actual wars. Thor improved steadily. The dialysis came off after 48 hours. His organs were healing slowly, but measurably. He started eating on his own just a little, but it was progress. The other canines would lie beside him, sharing their warmth, their presence, their unspoken support. "I've never seen anything like it," Sarah told Stevens during a quiet moment. "The way they care for each other." "Pack mentality. Military working dogs form bonds stronger than family. Thor's their brother. They'll protect him like they'd protect their handlers." "Do the handlers feel the same way?" Stevens looked at her like she'd asked if the sky was blue. "Doc, every person in this building would die for their dog. Not might. Would. Without hesitation, without regret. That's not training. That's love." On the 3rd night, Kim's laptop started beeping. "We've got movement. 3 blocks north, 2 vehicles, 6 heat signatures." Marcus was instantly alert. "Tactics. Slow approach, staying in shadows. Professional. Time to contact, 8 minutes, maybe 10. Wake everyone. Battle stations." The clinic transformed. Handlers took positions at windows and doors. Canines went on alert, ears forward, bodies tense. Sarah found herself armed with pepper spray and a baseball bat stationed near Thor's table, with instructions to protect him at all costs. "If they breach," Marcus told her, "you get Thor to the back room and lock the door. Understand? I'm not leaving you to—" "That's an order, Doc. Thor's the target. Everything else is secondary." Sarah wanted to argue, but she saw the look in his eyes. This wasn't negotiable. The vehicles stopped 2 blocks away. 6 figures emerged, moving with tactical precision toward the clinic. "FBI, hold your fire until my signal." Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. "Let them commit." The attackers reached the parking lot, spread out, approached the doors. Marcus keyed his radio. "I've got a clean shot on the leader." "Negative. We need them alive for interrogation." "Morrison if we wait. Trust me, Lieutenant." The lead attacker reached for the door handle. FBI agents swarmed from concealed positions, weapons drawn, shouting commands. 4 of the 6 dropped their weapons immediately. 2 ran. They didn't make it far. The canines Axe, Havoc, and Duchess were released and took them down in seconds. Not violently, just efficiently holding them until handlers arrived with restraints. It was over in 90 seconds. Morrison's team hauled the attackers inside for questioning. Sarah watched her heart still pounding as these 6 would-be killers were lined up against the wall. "Who sent you?" Morrison demanded. Silence. "We can do this easy or hard," Your choice." More silence. Then Thor, still weak but conscious, let out a low, threatening growl. It wasn't loud, but it carried weight. The attackers looked at the injured dog, surrounded by his pack, protected by warriors who'd already proven they'd do anything to save him. One of them broke. "Meridian, not the company, the people who ran it. They've got a list. 12 canine teams. They want revenge for Syria for the contracts they lost for the prison sentences." "Names," Morrison said. The man gave them. 6 former executives, all connected, all funding this vendetta, with money they'd hidden offshore. "Where are they now?" "I don't know. They use intermediaries and encrypted communications. We've never met them face to face." Marcus stepped forward. "But you know how to contact them." The man hesitated. "Listen carefully," Marcus said, his voice cold and level. "That dog over there, he saved more lives than you'll ever know. And you tried to kill him because some rich cowards couldn't handle the consequences of arming terrorists. You're going to tell us everything. Not because we'll hurt you, we won't. But because if you don't, you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you helped murderers escape justice." The man's resistance crumbled. He told them everything. Communication protocols, payment methods, the next planned attack. By the time Morrison's team finished the interrogation, they had enough to dismantle the entire operation. "We'll have them all in custody within 48 hours, Morrison told the handlers. "It's over." "Is it?" Stevens asked quietly. "How many other people are out there with grudges? How many other targets are on our backs?" "Can't promise you'll ever be completely safe, but we can promise we'll keep hunting anyone who comes after you." It wasn't much reassurance, but it was something. Sarah went back to Thor, who was watching everything with alert, intelligent eyes. He knew what had happened, knew his pack had protected him, knew the danger had passed, at least for now. "You're going to be okay," she told him softly. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And when you are, you're going to have one hell of a story to tell." Thor's tail moved, just slightly, just once, but it was the first time since the poisoning. Marcus saw it and smiled through his tears. The tail wag changed everything. Sarah had seen thousands of dogs recover from trauma, but she'd never seen one fight back from VX poisoning with this kind of determination. Thor's eyes tracked Marcus as he moved around the clinic, and when the other canines came close, Thor would lift his head just barely, just enough to acknowledge them. "He's trying to get up," Jackson observed on day 4. "Look at his front legs. He's testing his strength." "Too soon." Sarah checked Thor's vitals for the 100th time that morning. "His muscle control is still compromised from the neurotoxin. If he tries to stand and falls, he could injure himself worse. So we help him." Marcus was already positioning himself beside the table. "Stevens grabbed that harness from my truck, the one we used for rehab in Germany." Mark the doc said, "I heard what she said, but Thor's a working dog. Lying still is killing him slower than the poison did. He needs to feel useful, needs to move, needs purpose." Marcus looked at Sarah. "You said yourself that mental state affects physical recovery. Right now, Thor thinks he's helpless. That's not true, and we're going to prove it to him." Sarah wanted to refuse. Every veterinary instinct screamed that moving Thor was dangerous, premature, reckless, but she'd also watched this man save his dog through sheer force of will and unconventional thinking. Maybe the rules didn't apply here. 5 minutes, she conceded. "And if his vitals destabilize, we stop immediately." Stevens returned with a specialized harness designed to support injured military working dogs. Together, Marcus and Jackson fitted it carefully around Thor's body, taking his weight, letting him feel solid ground under his paws for the first time in 4 days. Thor's legs trembled. He couldn't hold his own weight, not even close, but his tail wagged again, stronger this time, and he made a sound that was almost a bark. "That's it, buddy. We've got you. Feel that you're standing." Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. "One day at a time, one step at a time, just like rehab after Syria. The other canines gathered close, not touching but present, forming a protective circle. Axe limped forward and touched his nose to Thor's, a gesture so deliberate and gentle that Sarah felt tears burning her eyes. "They're encouraging him," Ramirez said quietly. "Look at Havoc. He's showing Thor his own scars, reminding him that recovery is possible." Sarah had never thought of dogs as having that level of emotional intelligence, but watching these veterans interact, she couldn't deny it. They understood trauma. They understood survival, and they were teaching Thor that he could do this. After 5 minutes, Thor's legs gave out. Marcus and Jackson lowered him back to the padded table carefully, and Thor immediately fell asleep, exhausted, but somehow more peaceful than before. "That was good," Sarah admitted. "Really good. His heart rate stayed stable. His breathing was controlled. If we do this twice a day, gradually increasing the duration. We'll have him walking in a week," Marcus finished. "Maybe 2. Thor's strong. Always has been." But that night brought a setback nobody anticipated. Sarah was alone in the clinic at 2 a.m. The handlers were rotating sleep shifts in the building next door. The FBI was maintaining perimeter security, and the canines were resting. She was reviewing Thor's lab results when she heard it. Whimpering. Desperate, terrified whimpering. She rushed to Thor's table. His eyes were open but unfocused, his body rigid with tension. His heart rate was spiking on the monitor, climbing past 180, past 200. "Thor, hey, you're okay." She reached for him, and he snapped. Not a full bite, just a warning, his teeth clicking inches from her hand. He didn't recognize her. Sarah backed away, grabbed her phone, called Marcus. "Get here now. Thor's having some kind of episode." Marcus came through the door at a dead run, Jackson and Ramirez right behind him. Marcus approached slowly, hands visible, voice low. Thor, it's Marcus. You're safe, buddy. You're home." Thor's eyes tracked him, but didn't focus. He was somewhere else, trapped in a memory Sarah couldn't see. "It's a flashback," Jackson said. "PTSD. The stress of the poisoning, the recovery, it triggered something." "What do we do?" Sarah asked. "Same thing we do with human patients." Marcus knelt beside the table, maintaining distance but staying present. "We wait. We remind him where he is. We let him come back on his own terms." It took 20 minutes. Marcus talked the entire time, sharing memories, describing the clinic, naming the other canines sleeping nearby. Gradually, Thor's breathing slowed. His eyes cleared. He saw Marcus and made a sound that was half whimper, half whine. I know it's hard, but you're here, buddy. You're safe. The war's over." Thor laid his head down, and Marcus carefully stroked his ears. "How often does this happen?" Sarah asked. "With Thor, not often. Maybe once every few months. But trauma doesn't disappear just because you survive it. It stays with you, surfaces when you're vulnerable." "Does he always snap like that?" "No. Usually he just shakes, sometimes hides. The snap was fear, not aggression. He didn't know where he was, couldn't identify friend from threat." Marcus looked at her seriously. "If it happens again, don't approach him. Get me or one of the other handlers. We know how to talk him down without getting hurt." Sarah nodded, shaken. She'd treated aggressive dogs before, but this was different. This was a hero reliving hell. The next morning brought visitors Sarah definitely didn't expect. A convoy of black SUVs pulled up, and out stepped a Navy admiral, 2 Marine generals, and the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Morrison met them at the door. "Sirs, this is highly irregular. So is a retired military working dog surviving VX poisoning," the admiral said. "We've read the reports, Agent Morrison. We need to see this for ourselves." The handler snapped to attention when the brass entered. Even the canines seemed to sense the importance sitting at alert beside their partners. The Admiral approached Thor's table slowly. "At ease, Lieutenant Chen. I'm Admiral Hawkins. I commanded the task force your unit supported in Syria." "Sir." Marcus's voice was neutral controlled. "I read your after-action reports. The weapons cache your team found the intelligence Thor uncovered. It prevented those munitions from reaching 3 different terror cells. Saved lives we'll never be able to count." "Thor did his job, sir. Same as any of us." "More than his job, apparently." Hawkins looked at the other canines, at their visible scars, their missing limbs, their battle-worn bodies. "These dogs gave everything for missions most Americans will never know existed. And when they come home, what do they get? Substandard medical care? Limited resources, bureaucracy instead of gratitude." One of the Marine generals spoke up. "We're here to change that. The Secretary and I have drafted legislation, the Military Working Dog Health Care Act. Full veterinary coverage for life access to advanced treatment trauma care protocols based on what your team developed, Saving Thor." Sarah's breath caught. "You're making this official, the techniques we used. Dr. Rodriguez, you and these SEALs created a hybrid medical approach that's already saved Thor's life and could save hundreds more. We'd be fools not to learn from it." The Secretary pulled out a folder. "We want to establish the first Tier 1 K-9 medical center staffed by veterinarians and military medics working together. We want you to run it." "Me, I'm a civilian emergency vet. You're a woman who refused to quit on a patient everyone else had declared dead. That's the kind of leadership we need." Marcus was staring at Sarah, and she couldn't read his expression of pride, concern, both. "I need time to think about it," she managed. "Take the time you need, but know this, we're moving forward with or without you. You just happen to be the best person for the job." The Secretary turned to the handlers. "All of you, your dogs served. You served. It's time the country served you back." After they left, the clinic felt smaller somehow. Sarah sat beside Thor, processing what had just happened. "They want to change everything because of him," she said to Marcus. "One dog, one survival, and suddenly there's legislation and funding and national attention. That's how change happens. One person, one story, one moment that makes people realize the system's broken." Marcus scratched Thor's ears gently. "Thor's always been good at that, making people see what they'd rather ignore. Will you accept if they offer you a position at this new center?" "Probably. It's what Thor and I have been doing anyway, helping other vets and their dogs adjust to civilian life. Might as well do it with proper resources." "And if Thor doesn't fully recover, if he can't—" "He will." Marcus's voice was certain. "I know him. He's not done yet." But Thor's recovery hit another obstacle that afternoon. His kidney function crashed again, sending his creatinine levels soaring despite all the medications and support. "It's secondary damage from the VX," Sarah explained, trying to keep the panic from her voice. "The initial exposure damaged the kidney tissue, and now it's failing to regenerate properly." "What are our options?" Jackson demanded. "Dialysis again, aggressive medication, hope his body can heal itself. Or," Marcus's eyes were hard, "or he needs a kidney transplant." Silence. "You can do that for dogs?" Ramirez asked. "It's been done, but it's experimental, expensive, and risky. The survival rate is maybe 60%. Better than 0% if we do nothing." Marcus looked at the other handlers. "Anyone here have a dog who might be a tissue match?" "Mark, you can't ask them to," Jackson started. "I'm not asking. I'm offering information. If any of your canines are compatible, and if you're willing to let them donate a kidney to save Thor, we try it. If not, we try the other options." Rodriguez, the handler, stepped forward. "Test Havoc. He and Thor are both Belgian Malinois, similar age and build. If anyone's a match, he is. Rodriguez Havoc already has burn damage. Taking a kidney is what Havoc would want. You know it, Mark. These dogs understand sacrifice better than most humans. Sarah ran the blood work. It took 2 hours that felt like 2 years. When the results came back, she stared at them for a long moment before speaking. Havoc is a perfect match. The room erupted in urgent discussion. Morrison was on the phone with Walter Reed coordinating surgical teams. Jackson was pulling up statistics on canine kidney transplants. Kim was already ordering specialized equipment. Sarah pulled Marcus aside. "This is a massive decision. The surgery is hours long, requires 2 separate teams working simultaneously, and both dogs will be at risk. Thor from the transplant itself, Havoc from the donation. Are you sure?" No, but Marcus's honesty surprised her. "I'm not sure about anything anymore except that doing nothing is worse than trying. Thor survived the impossible already. Maybe he's got one more miracle in him." Rodriguez joined them. "Havoc's ready. Whatever Thor needs. You understand your dog might not survive this. That even if the surgery goes well, complications could. Doc Havoc jumped on a grenade in Kabul. Didn't explode, but he didn't know that when he did it. He jumped anyway because that's what brothers do. This is no different." Sarah had never felt the weight of responsibility like this. 2 war heroes on her operating table, both at risk, both depending on her to do what had rarely been done successfully. "I need the best veterinary surgical team on the East Coast," she said. "And the best military surgical team, and about 12 hours to prepare." "You've got it." Morrison was already coordinating. "Walter Reed is sending their top people. We'll have everything you need." The next 12 hours were organized chaos. Surgical teams arrived with equipment Sarah had only read about in journals. The clinic's examination room was transformed into a sterile surgical suite. Protocols were reviewed, contingencies planned, prayers said by people who probably hadn't prayed in years. Marcus sat with Thor the entire time, talking quietly, preparing him for what came next. "This is going to be rough, buddy. Rougher than anything we've done yet. But Havoc's giving you one of his kidneys because that's what Pac does. You'd do the same for him." Thor's eyes followed Marcus, understanding in a way that transcended language. "After this, you're going to owe him. Big time. No more stealing his treats. No more taking the best napping spots. You hear me?" Thor's tail moved slightly. "That's my boy." Rodriguez was having a similar conversation with Havoc, explaining why they were about to do something crazy and dangerous and necessary. At midnight, they were ready. Sarah had 2 surgical teams, military and civilian, prepared to work in perfect coordination. She'd never been more terrified or more determined in her life. "Last chance to back out," she told Marcus and Rodriguez. "Not backing out," they said in unison. Sarah nodded. "Then let's save some lives." The surgery began. 2 tables, 2 teams, 2 dogs who'd given everything for their country and were about to give even more. Sarah coordinated between the teams, monitoring vitals, calling out changes, making split-second decisions that would determine who lived and died. 4 hours in Havoc's blood pressure dropped dangerously. "He's crashing," the military surgeon called out. "Stabilize him. We can't lose the donor before we complete the transplant. Pressure's at 60 and falling." Sarah was across the room in seconds, her hands moving automatically, years of emergency medicine taking over. Medications, fluids, direct cardiac support. Havoc's vitals climbed back to acceptable levels. "We're good. Keep going." 6 hours in Thor's body rejected the new kidney. "Rejection response," Sarah's team leader shouted. "Administering immunosuppressants." "Max dose now," Sarah ordered. "We don't get a second chance at this." The anti-rejection drugs worked, but barely. Thor's body was fighting the foreign organ even as it desperately needed it to survive. 8 hours in both dogs were alive, but critical. The transplant was technically complete, but the next 72 hours would determine if either dog survived. Sarah stumbled out of the surgical suite, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever felt. Marcus and Rodriguez were waiting, their faces drawn with tension. "They made it through surgery," she said. "Now we wait." "How long?" Marcus asked. 3 days before we know if Thor's body accepts the kidney. 3 days before we know if Havoc's remaining kidney can handle the full workload. 3 days of hell." Rodriguez looked at Marcus. "Worth it?" "Yeah, it is." The canines knew. Somehow they knew their brothers were fighting for their lives in that surgical suite. They maintained a vigil outside the door, refusing to eat, barely sleeping, just waiting. Stevens tried to move them. "Come on, guys. You need rest too." The dogs didn't budge. Axe actually growled when she reached for his collar. Okay. You stay. But someone's bringing you water and food, and you're drinking and eating whether you want to or not. 12 hours post-surgery. Thor woke up, groggy, confused, in pain, but awake. The first thing he did was look for Marcus. "Right here, buddy, right here." Marcus had his hand on Thor's paw, hadn't left except to use the bathroom. "How you feeling?" Thor whimpered. "I know, surgery's rough. But you've got Havoc's kidney now. He gave it to you because you're pack. Your family." At the sound of Havoc's name, Thor tried to lift his head, looking for his brother. "He's okay. In recovery, just like you. Rodriguez is with him." Sarah checked Thor's post-op labs and felt hope for the first time in days. "The kidney's functioning. Early days, but it's working. And Havoc, stable. His remaining kidney is showing good function. Better than we hoped, honestly." 48 hours post-surgery, they moved both dogs to the same recovery area. Thor and Havoc lay on adjacent tables connected by monitors and IVs, but together. Thor kept turning his head toward Havoc, making soft sounds. "He's thanking him," Rodriguez said. "Look at his body language. That's gratitude." Marcus believed it. These dogs communicated in ways humans couldn't fully understand, shared bonds forged in combat and sealed in sacrifice. 72 hours post-surgery. Sarah declared them both out of immediate danger. Thor's body has accepted the kidney. No rejection signs, good function, healing well. Havoc's solo kidney is handling the load beautifully. They're both going to make it. The clinic erupted in celebration. Handlers hugged each other. Canines barked happy barks, victory barks. Even Morrison smiled, and Sarah was pretty sure she'd never seen that before. But the celebration was cut short by Kim's laptop alarm. "We've got a problem. FBI just raided the Meridian executives' locations. They're gone. All 6 of them. Vanished." Morrison was on her phone immediately. "What do you mean, gone?" "We had surveillance. They knew we were coming. Someone tipped them off again." Kim's fingers flew across the keyboard. "And it gets worse. We just intercepted communications. They're planning something big, not just against the K9 teams, against everyone involved in Thor's rescue." "Meaning?" Marcus asked, though his tone said he already knew. "Meaning this clinic, the handlers, the FBI agents, Dr. Rodriguez, everyone who embarrassed them by saving Thor when they wanted him dead." Sarah felt ice flood her veins. "When unknown, but the chatter suggests soon, very soon." Morrison started issuing orders, calling in reinforcements, establishing defensive positions. But Marcus was staring at Thor and Havoc, both still weak from surgery, both vulnerable. "We can't move them," he said quietly. "The stress would kill them both." "Then we defend here," Stevens said. "Same as before, but this time we know they're coming." "This time they'll come with everything they've got," Ramirez countered. "No more probing attacks. They'll hit us hard, fast, and overwhelming." And Sarah looked at her clinic at these wounded warriors, at the dogs who'd given everything. Then we make sure we're ready to hit back harder. The preparation turned Sarah's clinic into something she never imagined. Morrison brought in ballistic shields. The handlers reinforced windows with steel plating borrowed from a construction site. Kim set up a surveillance network that would make paranoid dictators jealous. And through it all, Thor and Havoc lay recovering, unaware that their survival had painted targets on everyone's backs. "How much time do we have?" Sarah asked Morrison, while checking Thor's post-op vitals for the 20th time that hour. "Best guess 24 hours, maybe less." The intercepted communications mentioned before full recovery, which means they know the dogs are vulnerable right now. Marcus was cleaning his weapon with methodical precision. "They'll hit us at night. Maximum confusion, minimal visibility. Probably between 2 and 4 a.m. when human alertness is lowest." "The dogs don't get less alert," Rodriguez pointed out. Havoc was watching him with clear, focused eyes despite the surgery. "They'll know someone's coming before our equipment does." "Then we use that?" Jackson pulled up a tactical map on his tablet. "We position the canines as our early warning system. They detect the threat, alert us, we respond with overwhelming force before the attackers get close." "You're talking about using injured war dogs as sentries," Sarah protested. "They need rest, not guard duty." "They need purpose," Stevens corrected gently. "Doc, you've seen how these dogs operate. Lying around recovering makes them anxious. Give them a job, even a small one, and they heal faster. It's psychological as much as physical." But Sarah wanted to argue, but she'd seen the truth of it with Thor. The moment he felt useful again, his recovery had accelerated. Still putting post-surgical patients on alert felt wrong on every medical level. "Limited duration," she conceded. 2-hour shifts maximum. And they stay in protected positions where they can alert without being in direct danger. "Agreed." Marcus stood holstered his weapon. "Kim, show the doc our defensive setup. She needs to know where to go when it hits." The defensive plan was complex, but made sense once Kim explained it. 3 layers of security each, designed to slow attackers and funnel them into kill zones. The canines formed the outer detection ring. FBI agents held the middle perimeter. The SEALs controlled the inner sanctum where Thor and Havoc were recovering. "And me?" Sarah asked. "You stay with the patients. If we fall back, you're the last line of defense." Kim handed her a compact pistol. "You know how to use one of these. I'm a veterinarian, not a yes or no doc." Sarah stared at the weapon. She'd never held a gun in her life, believed in saving lives, not taking them. But she thought about Thor fighting VX poisoning, about Havoc donating a kidney, about these warriors who'd given everything for strangers. "Teach me." Jackson took her to the back room and gave her a 10-minute crash course that would have made firearms instructors weep. Safety grip, sight, picture, trigger control. Sarah's hands shook the entire time. "You're not going to war," Jackson assured her. "This is just insurance. If someone gets past all of us and comes through that door, you point and shoot. Don't think, don't hesitate, just protect your patients." "I took an oath to do no harm." "So did I. But sometimes protecting the innocent means harming the guilty. That's not murder, Doc. That's justice." When Sarah tucked the pistol into her coat pocket where it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Night fell. The handlers took positions. The canines, even the injured ones, went on alert. Sarah sat between Thor and Havoc, monitoring their vitals, while Morrison's FBI team checked and rechecked their equipment. "This is insane," Sarah muttered to herself. 3 days ago, I was treating a cat with diabetes. Now I'm in a fortified veterinary clinic waiting for armed mercenaries to attack. "Life comes at you fast," Ramirez said from his position near the window. He wasn't being flippant, his tone was sympathetic. "Nobody trains you for the moment, everything changes. You just adapt, or you don't." "How do you adapt to this?" You remember what you're protecting. For me, it's Havoc. For Mark, it's Thor. For you, it's both of them, plus every other patient you'll save once this is over. That centers you when the chaos starts. At 11 p.m., the first alarm triggered. Axe started growling low in his throat. Everyone went rigid. What's he detecting? Marcus whispered to Stevens. Something. Could be a deer, could be a person. He's not sure yet. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Axe relaxed. False alarm, Stevens reported. He's settled. Or they're probing our defenses, Kim countered. Testing response times, seeing how alert we are. Either way, stay sharp. At 1 a.m., Duchess alerted. Then Odin. Then Freya. All the canines were reacting to something the humans couldn't detect. This is it, Marcus said quietly. Kim, what are we seeing on surveillance? Nothing yet. Wait thermal signature northeast corner 200 meters out. Just one. Reading shows 1, but if these are professionals, they're spacing themselves to avoid grouped signatures. Morrison was on the radio coordinating with her team. All units, we have possible contact. Rules of engagement are clear. Identify and challenge before firing. We need these people alive for prosecution. With respect, ma'am, rules of engagement change when they start shooting at us, Jackson said. Then don't let them start shooting first. The thermal signatures multiplied. 3 contacts. 5. 8. They were surrounding the building in a tactical formation that spoke of military training. They're not amateurs, Ramirez observed, moving in pairs covering each other using terrain for concealment. How many total? Marcus asked. At least 12. Maybe more if they're staged outside thermal range. Sarah felt her heart hammering. 12 armed attackers against 8 handlers, maybe a dozen FBI agents, and a veterinarian with a pistol she barely knew how to use. The math was bad. Thor stirred on his table. His eyes opened, and he looked directly at Marcus with an expression that said he knew what was coming. Stay down, buddy. This one's on us. You've done enough. But Thor tried to stand anyway. The effort made him shake his post-surgical body, not ready for action, but the spirit was there. Sarah gently pushed him back down. Listen to your handler, she told him firmly. You protect by surviving right now. That's your mission. Thor made a frustrated sound, but stayed down. The attackers reached the outer perimeter at 1:47 a.m. The FBI agents challenged them according to protocol. Federal agents, show your hands and identify yourselves. The response was a hail of gunfire. Sarah hit the floor on instinct, her hands over her head. She heard Marcus and Jackson returning fire, heard Morrison shouting orders, heard the canines barking in fury at being unable to join the fight. They're using suppressing fire to advance, Kim called out. West side is taking heavy contact. Fall back to secondary positions, Morrison ordered. Let them push into the kill zone. The FBI agents retreated in controlled fashion, drawing the attackers forward. Sarah couldn't see what was happening, could only hear the chaos of combat, and pray that nobody she'd come to care about was hit. Tango's in the parking lot, Ramirez reported. 4 confirmed moving toward the main entrance. Let them come. Marcus's voice was ice cold. Jackson, you ready? Born ready. The attackers breached the front door with explosive charges. The blast shook the entire building, and Sarah screamed despite herself. But the SEALs had anticipated it. They'd rigged the entrance with their own surprises. Flashbangs detonated, disorienting the attackers. Then smoke grenades obscuring their vision. The FBI agents opened fire from protected positions, and Sarah heard screams that meant shots were finding targets. 3 down, Morrison reported. But we've got more coming from the east. How many more? Marcus demanded. At least 6. They're trying to flank us. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Sarah stayed low, keeping her body between the door and the recovering dogs, the pistol in her shaking hand pointed at the entrance. One of the attackers made it through. He came through the back window armed and moving fast. Sarah saw him raising his weapon toward Thor's table. She didn't think. She just fired. The recoil nearly broke her wrist. The shot went wide, missing by feet. But it was enough to make the attacker turn toward her, and that second of distraction let Ramirez take him down with a perfect shot. "You okay, Doc?" Ramirez called. "I shot at someone. I actually shot at someone." "And you probably saved Thor's life. Not bad for your first firefight." Sarah's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd crossed a line she never thought she'd cross, and there was no going back. The attack lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, 7 attackers were in custody, 4 were dead, and 3 had escaped into the night. On the defenders' side, 2 FBI agents were wounded but stable, and Rodriguez had taken a grazing shot to the shoulder that he insisted was just a scratch, despite the blood. "Havoc's okay," Rodriguez demanded before letting Sarah treat him. "Havoc's fine. Didn't even wake up through most of it. Now sit down and let me stop the bleeding." "It's nothing. You're bleeding on my floor. Sit." Rodriguez sat. While Sarah worked on his shoulder, Morrison was interrogating the captured attackers. They weren't talking, but their equipment told a story. Military-grade weapons, encrypted communications, professional coordination. These weren't street thugs hired for quick cash. These were contractors, expensive ones. "Someone spent serious money on this attack," Morrison told Marcus. "We're talking 6 figures minimum, maybe 7. "The Meridian executives," Marcus said. "They're liquidating their hidden assets, throwing everything at revenge before we can find them." "Which means they're desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Or they go for broke and try something even worse." Kim's laptop chimed. He looked at the screen and went pale. "Mark, we've got a massive problem. Worse than what we just survived. Way worse. I just cracked the encrypted communications from the attackers. There's a second team, bigger than this one, and they're not coming here." "Where then?" "Walter Reed. The secure wing where they're preparing for the other K9 teams to arrive. They're going to hit it in 3 hours." The room went silent. "How many dogs are there right now?" Sarah asked. 6. 6 retired K9s receiving treatment with more scheduled to arrive tomorrow. Kim pulled up security footage from the hospital. "Current security is standard medical facility level, not prepared for a military-style assault." Ken Morrison was already on the phone. "We need to evacuate Walter Reed's K9 wing immediately. Full tactical response, maximum priority." But Marcus was shaking his head. "If they see us evacuating, they'll know we intercepted their communications. They'll adapt change targets, hit us somewhere we're not prepared." "You want to use sick dogs as bait?" Morrison's voice was sharp. "I want to use our knowledge of their plan to set a trap. We evacuate the dogs quietly, replace them with decoys, and when the attackers come, we take them all down at once." "That's risky. Everything's risky. But this way we end it. We get the second team, we interrogate them, they lead us to the Meridian executives, and we shut this entire operation down permanently." Morrison considered it. "I'll need authorization from about 6 different departments." "Then get it. We've got 3 hours." The next 3 hours were controlled chaos. FBI hostage rescue coordinated with military police to evacuate Walter Reed's K9 patients through underground tunnels. The handlers prepared to deploy despite their own injuries and exhaustion. Sarah frantically stabilized Rodriguez's shoulder while monitoring Thor and Havoc's post-op status. "You can't leave them," she told Marcus. "Thor and Havoc are still critical. If there are complications, then you handle them. You've proven you can do anything you set your mind to, Doc, including shooting at armed attackers." "I missed. You pulled the trigger when it mattered. That's what counts." Marcus checked his gear with practiced efficiency. "We end this tonight, or it never ends. These people will keep coming, keep attacking, keep trying to kill what we love. I won't live like that, and I won't let Thor live like that. So you're willing to die to protect dogs you've never met. I'm willing to die to protect the idea that service matters, that sacrifice counts, that we don't abandon our own. Those dogs at Walter Reed, they're pack, and pack is family. Sarah understood. She'd felt it herself when she refused to give up on Thor, when she stood against the medical board, when she pulled that trigger to protect her patient. This wasn't about dogs or humans or regulations. This was about standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Then go. End it. I'll keep Thor and Havoc alive until you get back. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. I know you will. The handlers deployed at 4 a.m., leaving Sarah alone with the recovering dogs, 2 FBI agents for security, and her own racing thoughts. She'd never felt more isolated or more determined. Thor was watching her with those intelligent eyes. Your handler's going to war for you, she told him. For you and 6 dogs he's never met. That's the kind of man he is. Thor's tail moved slightly. So you'd better keep fighting. Keep healing. Because when Marcus gets back, he's going to need you to be strong again. That's what you do right. You're there for each other. At Walter Reed, the trap was set. Decoy dogs, actually sophisticated dummies with heat signatures and breathing simulators, lay in the patient beds. Tactical teams hid in every corner. Snipers covered every approach. Morrison coordinated from a mobile command center, and Marcus's team held the inner positions. They'll come at shift change, Jackson predicted. 06:30, when the night staff is tired and the day staff isn't fully alert yet. 30 minutes, Ramirez confirmed. Everyone stay sharp. The attackers arrived at exactly 6:28 a.m. 12 operators, heavily armed, moving with professional precision toward the canine wing. They used stolen hospital credentials to access restricted areas, disabled security cameras with practiced ease, and approached their targets with lethal intent. They never stood a chance. The moment they entered the canine ward and saw the dummy patients, they knew it was a trap. But by then, FBI hostage rescue had sealed every exit. Military police had locked down the entire wing. Marcus's team controlled the only way out. Federal agents, drop your weapons. Some did. Some tried to fight. Those who fought learned what happened when you challenged Navy SEALs on their chosen ground. The engagement lasted 90 seconds and ended with all 12 attackers in custody, 0 casualties on the defenders' side. Morrison personally searched the lead attacker and found what they needed: a satellite phone with direct communications to the Meridian executives. Got them? She told Marcus. Triangulating the signal now. Looks like a private estate in the Cayman Islands. Extradition. Already in progress. We've got cooperation from local authorities. By this time tomorrow, all 6 executives will be in federal custody. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. It's over. Not quite. Morrison showed him the phone's message history. They've got one more team, smaller 4 operators, and according to these messages, they're not going after canines anymore. What's their target? Morrison's expression was grim. Dr. Rodriguez. Marcus's blood went cold. When message timestamp says they deployed 40 minutes ago. He was running before she finished the sentence. Back at the clinic, Sarah was checking Havoc's surgical site when the power went out. Emergency lights kicked in immediately, but the sudden change startled her. Generator malfunction? One of the FBI agents said, moving toward the electrical panel. Wait, Sarah started to say. The explosion took out the back wall. Sarah was thrown across the room, her ears ringing, her vision swimming. Through the smoke and dust, she saw 4 figures entering through the breach. They weren't FBI. They weren't military. They were the last team, and they'd come for her. Thor tried to stand, tried to protect her, despite his post-surgical state. One of the attackers raised his weapon toward the dog. Sarah didn't hesitate this time. She pulled out her pistol and fired. The shot hit the attacker in the leg, and he went down screaming. The other three turned toward her. Sarah fired again, missed, fired a third time. The FBI agents were engaging from their positions, but the attackers had superior positioning from the breach. "Get the dogs to safety," Sarah shouted, but there was nowhere safe to take them. One attacker advanced on her weapon raised. Sarah's pistol clicked empty. She'd forgotten to count rounds, forgotten everything Jackson taught her, except that she wouldn't let them hurt her patients. She charged him. It was stupid, suicidal, hopeless. But she connected, slamming into him with all her weight, knocking his weapon aside. They went down in a tangle, and Sarah fought with everything she had, nails, teeth, elbows, knees, every dirty trick she'd never thought she'd need. The attacker was bigger, stronger trained. He flipped her, pinned her, raised his fist. Then 200 pounds of injured Belgian Malinois hit him from the side. Havoc had somehow gotten off his table post-surgery complications be damned, and attacked the man threatening his rescuer. The dog couldn't fight like he used to, couldn't much with his old speed, but the fury was there. The protective instinct. The refusal to let his pack be harmed. The attacker screamed, trying to throw Havoc off. But Thor had joined the fight now, both dogs moving on pure adrenaline and heart, despite their surgical wounds. The FBI agents used the distraction to neutralize the remaining attackers. Within seconds, all four were down, disarmed, restrained. Sarah crawled to the dogs. Both were bleeding from their surgical sites, their stitches torn open from the exertion. "You idiots," she sobbed, already grabbing medical supplies. "You beautiful, stupid, heroic idiots." Marcus arrived to find Sarah on the floor between Thor and Havoc, both dogs bleeding, all three of them alive. He dropped beside them, his hands shaking, as he checked Thor's injuries. "What happened? They protected me." Sarah was crying and laughing simultaneously. "Your post-surgical barely recovered dogs fought off armed attackers because they wouldn't let anyone hurt me." "That's what they do," Marcus said, his own voice breaking. "They protect Pack." Rodriguez arrived seconds later, saw Havoc bleeding, and made a sound Sarah had never heard from a warrior. "I'm okay," Havoc seemed to say with his eyes. "She needed help." Sarah worked frantically to stabilize both dogs. The stitches were torn, but not catastrophically. The bleeding was controllable. The damage was manageable. But they'd set their recovery back by weeks, maybe months, all to save her. "I'm not worth this," she whispered. "Yes, you are," Marcus said firmly. "You saved Thor when everyone else quit. You've saved all of us in ways you don't even understand. They know that. That's why they fought." Morrison secured the four attackers and got them talking within an hour. They confirmed everything: the Meridian executive's location, the payment structure, the kill list. By noon, Cayman authorities had the executives in custody. By evening, extradition was approved. It was over. Really, truly over. Sarah spent the next 24 hours restitching Thor and Havoc, stabilizing their conditions, medicating them into peaceful sleep. Both dogs would recover, but they'd earned scars to add to their collection. "They're going to be okay," she told Marcus finally. "All of us are. Because of you. Because of all of us. That's how Pack works, right?" Marcus smiled through his exhaustion. "Yeah, Doc, that's exactly how Pack works." 3 weeks after the final attack, Sarah stood in her rebuilt clinic watching Thor take his first unassisted steps since the kidney transplant. The dog moved slowly, carefully testing each leg before committing his weight. Marcus walked beside him, hands ready to catch him if he fell, but Thor didn't fall. He made it across the room, turned, and walked back. "That's my boy," Marcus said, his voice thick. "That's my brother." But Thor's tail wagged, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah saw something in his eyes that looked like peace. Not the absence of pain. She knew he still hurt, knew the recovery was far from complete. but the presence of hope. The understanding that he'd survived the worst and come out the other side. Havoc watched from his own recovery bed, his tail thumping approval. The bond between the two dogs had deepened in ways Sarah couldn't fully explain. They'd shared kidneys, shared battles, shared survival. They were brothers now, in the truest sense. Dr. Rodriguez. Morrison appeared in the doorway, looking official in her FBI suit. We need to talk about your testimony. The trial was scheduled for 2 months out. All 6 Meridian executives plus Kozlov, plus the surviving attackers. Sarah would have to testify about the attacks, the medical procedures, everything she'd witnessed. The thought made her stomach knot. I'm not good at public speaking, she admitted. You held off armed mercenaries with a half-empty pistol while protecting post-surgical patients. I think you can handle a courtroom. Morrison's expression softened. But I understand it's hard. Reliving trauma always is. Is it going to make a difference, my testimony? Between these men spending 20 years in prison versus life without parole? Absolutely. The jury needs to understand the lengths they went to the lives they endangered, the evil they represented. Sarah nodded slowly. Then I'll do it. For Thor, for Havoc, for all the canines who can't speak for themselves. That's all any of us can do, speak for those who can't. After Morrison left, Sarah found Marcus sitting with Thor, just being present the way he'd been for weeks. The man had barely left the clinic except to shower and change clothes. He'd turned down reassignment offers, delayed his re-enlistment decision, put his entire life on hold for this dog. You should go home, Sarah told him. Get real rest. Thor's stable now. Home doesn't feel like home without him, and he's not ready to leave yet. I meant your apartment not taking Thor anywhere. He needs at least another week here, maybe 2. Marcus looked uncomfortable. About that. My lease ended during all this. I haven't exactly been apartment hunting. Sarah stared at him. You've been homeless for 3 weeks and didn't say anything. I had a place to sleep, the cot in your storage room. And I wasn't about to leave Thor. Marcus Chen, you are the most stubborn, infuriating, dedicated... Sarah stopped herself. There's an apartment above this clinic. Previous owner used to live there. It's been empty for 2 years, but it's furnished functional. You can stay there. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Consider it payment for turning my quiet veterinary practice into the most exciting 3 weeks of my life. Marcus almost smiled. Exciting. That's one word for it. Terrifying, life-changing, perspective-altering, take your pick. But also meaningful. Everything we did here, it mattered. Yeah, it did. The apartment situation solved one problem, but created another. Over the next few days, Sarah found herself spending more time upstairs with Marcus and Thor than she did in her own home. They'd share meals, discuss Thor's recovery progress, talk about the future. It felt natural, comfortable, like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. Rodriguez noticed. You two getting close? Sarah felt her face heat. We're colleagues, friends, partners in keeping these dogs alive. Uh-huh. And the way you look at him, the way he looks at you, there's nothing we're not, it's complicated. Always is with warriors. They don't know how to do relationships halfway. Either they're all in or all out, no middle ground. Sarah thought about that while checking Havoc's sutures. Rodriguez was right. Marcus approached everything with total commitment. His service, his loyalty to Thor, his determination to see this mission through. If he ever did pursue a relationship, it would be with that same intensity. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. 2 days later, the unexpected happened. Admiral Hawkins returned this time with the Secretary of Defense and a news crew. We're making this official, Hawkins announced. The Military Working Dog Healthcare Act passed both houses with overwhelming support. Funding starts immediately, and we're breaking ground on the first Tier 1 canine medical center next month. Sarah's hands shook. You're really doing this. We're really doing this, and we want you to lead it. The secretary pulled out a contract that made Sarah's eyes water. Not from the salary, though, that was substantial, but from the implications. Director of the nation's first advanced military working dog medical facility. Authority to set protocols, train staff, establish standards that would affect thousands of canines. This is too much responsibility for one person. Good thing you won't be alone. Hawkins gestured to Marcus. Lieutenant Chen has agreed to serve as deputy director handling tactical integration and handler relations. Jackson will run the combat medical training program. Rodriguez manages rehab and recovery services. Marcus looked as stunned as Sarah felt. Sir, You're a Navy SEAL who saved his partner's life using methods that are now being adopted nationwide. You're exactly who we need. Hawkins's expression hardened with purpose. The canines who serve our country deserve the same level of care we give our human personnel. You've proven it's possible. Now make it standard. The news crew filmed Thor taking his careful steps around the clinic, interviewed the handlers about their experiences, captured footage of Havoc resting peacefully beside his kidney recipient. The story would air on national television, reaching millions of people who'd never thought about military working dogs or what happened to them after service. This is going to change everything, Kim observed watching the filming. Public opinion funding priorities how the military views K9 assets. They're not assets, Marcus said quietly. They're warriors, partners, family. It's about time everyone else understood that. The segment aired 3 days later. Sarah watched it in the clinic with all the handlers and their canines gathered around. She saw herself on screen looking exhausted and determined, explaining the unconventional techniques they'd used. Saw Marcus describing Thor's service record with obvious pride. Saw Morrison discussing the investigation and the justice that was coming. But the most powerful moment was Thor himself walking slowly but steadily across the clinic floor, while Havoc watched with what looked like brotherly pride. 2 dogs who'd given everything for their country, and now were teaching the country to give back. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah's clinic phone rang constantly with media requests, interview offers, speaking invitations. The clinic's website crashed from traffic. Donations poured in more money than Sarah had seen in her entire career, all earmarked for military working dog care. We're going to need a bigger facility, she told Marcus over dinner in his apartment. Thor was sleeping peacefully at their feet, finally comfortable enough to truly rest. The new center will handle that. 24 examination rooms, 6 surgical suites, dedicated rehabilitation wing, even a therapy pool for water-based recovery. Sounds expensive. Congress appropriated $200 million for the first year. Turns out Thor's story touched some powerful people. Sarah shook her head in wonder. 1 dog, 1 survival, and the entire system changes. That's how change always happens. One person refuses to accept the unacceptable, and it creates ripples that become waves. Marcus reached down, gently, scratched Thor's ears. This guy's been creating waves his entire career. Saved lives, exposed corruption, survived assassination attempts. He's not just a dog, Sarah. He's a force of nature. So are you. Marcus looked up, and Sarah saw something in his eyes she'd been hoping to see for weeks. Not just respect or gratitude or partnership, something deeper, more personal, more vulnerable. Sarah, I need to tell you something. After this is all over, after the trial, and the center opens, and Thor's fully recovered, I'm planning to stay. In Virginia, build a life here. Because of the center, because of you. Sarah's breath caught. Marcus. I know it's complicated. I know I'm not easy to be with. PTSD doesn't disappear, Combat trauma doesn't vanish, and I'll always put Thor first. But if you're willing to accept all that I'd like to try, a real relationship, not just colleagues or friends, something more. Sarah had faced armed attackers, performed impossible surgeries, defied medical boards and military brass. But this moment felt more frightening than all of those combined. This was her heart, her future, her chance at something real with someone extraordinary. "I'm willing," she said simply. "All of it. The complications, the trauma, Thor coming first. I'm willing." Marcus smiled, really smiled, and Sarah felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like home. The trial began 8 weeks after the final attack. Sarah testified for 3 hours, describing every detail of Thor's poisoning, the desperate medical interventions, the attacks on the clinic. The defense attorneys tried to paint her as an unreliable witness, an emotional veterinarian who'd fabricated danger to justify extreme actions. Then the prosecution showed the surveillance footage, the VX poisoning attempt, the clinic breach, the final assault where Thor and Havoc fought, injured to protect her. The jury watched in silence, and Sarah saw several of them crying. The Meridian executives showed no remorse. Even facing life sentences, they maintained they'd done nothing wrong, that exposing their weapons trafficking was the real crime, that the canines and their handlers were obstacles that needed removing. "These are just dogs," one executive said during his testimony. "Animals. They don't deserve the resources being wasted on them." Marcus stood up in the gallery. The judge gavelled for order, but Marcus spoke anyway. "Those animals saved my life. They've saved hundreds of lives. They've sacrificed more for this country than you ever did sitting in your air-conditioned office counting blood money." Security moved toward him, but Marcus didn't resist. "And they're not just dogs. They're heroes. Every single one of them." The judge ordered Marcus removed from the courtroom, but the damage was done. The jury had heard what needed to be said. Verdict came after 4 days of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole for the executives. Kozlov got an additional life sentence. The surviving attackers received sentences ranging from 40 to 60 years. Outside the courthouse, Morrison found Marcus and Sarah. "Justice served." "For now," Marcus said. "But there will be others. More people who see canines as disposable, more criminals who want revenge, more fights ahead." "Then it's good we're building something permanent to fight them with." Morrison handed Sarah a folder. "Final authorization for the Canine Medical Center. Construction starts next week. You're officially in charge, Dr. Rodriguez." Sarah opened the folder and felt tears welling up. This was real. This was happening. Thor's survival had created something that would protect thousands of canines for generations to come. 6 months later, the center opened. It was everything they'd hoped for and more. State-of-the-art medical equipment, the best veterinary staff in the country, protocols that combined civilian and military expertise. On opening day, 12 canines received treatment that would have been impossible a year earlier. Thor was there, of course, fully recovered, now moving with his old confidence, if not quite his old speed. He'd been named Honorary Chief of Canine Operations, a ceremonial title that came with a custom collar and the respect of every person in the building. Havoc served alongside him as Deputy Chief, both dogs now mentoring younger canines who were struggling with injuries or trauma. Sarah watched them work with a young Belgian Malinois who'd lost a leg in Afghanistan, showing him that injury didn't mean the end, that purpose could be found even in limitation. "They're natural therapists," she told Marcus during a quiet moment. "They're survivors teaching other survivors to survive. Nothing more powerful than that." The center's success exceeded all projections. Within a year, they'd treated over 200 canines, developed new surgical techniques, published research that revolutionized veterinary trauma care. Sarah found herself traveling to speak at conferences, training other veterinarians, spreading the knowledge they'd gained through Thor's desperate fight for life. But the best moments were still the quiet ones. Coming home to find Marcus and Thor on the couch watching television like any man and his dog, seeing Havoc playing with the neighborhood kids who'd learned his story and treated him like the hero he was. Having Rodriguez and the other handlers over for dinner, sharing stories and laughter and the peace that came from survival. 2 years after the poisoning, Sarah and Marcus got married in a small ceremony at the center. Thor served as ring bearer, walking carefully down the aisle with the rings attached to his collar. Havoc was best man or best dog. Every handler and their canine attended, plus Morrison and her FBI team, the admiral, the secretary, and about 100 people whose lives had been touched by Thor's story. During the vows, Sarah looked at Marcus and saw not just the warrior who'd saved his dog against impossible odds, but the man who'd learned to let someone else share the load. Who'd learned that strength wasn't just about doing everything yourself, but about accepting help when it was offered. "I promise to stand beside you," she said, "to support your mission to care for Thor like he's my own, to build this life we've created into something that matters." "I promise to trust you," Marcus replied, "to let you in even when it's hard to share the weight, instead of carrying it alone, to choose us even when the mission calls." Thor barked his approval, and everyone laughed through their tears. 5 years after the poisoning, the center had grown into a network of 12 facilities across the country. Thousands of canines had received care that saved their lives or improved their quality of life after service. The protocols developed from Thor's treatment were now standard in military veterinary medicine worldwide. Thor was older now, graying around the muzzle, moving with the careful deliberation of a senior dog. But his eyes were still bright, his spirit still strong. He spent his days at the center visiting patients, comforting anxious canines, reminding everyone what was possible when you refused to quit. On the 5th anniversary of his poisoning, the center held a celebration. Hundreds of people attended handlers and their canines veterinarians. Thor's case had inspired military officials who'd fought for the legislation, families of the Marines, and soldiers whose lives Thor had saved during his deployment years. Sarah gave a speech about the journey from that desperate night, when Thor's heart had stopped to this moment of triumph and legacy. She talked about the power of refusing to accept the unacceptable, about the bond between handler and canine that transcended species, about the responsibility to care for those who'd given everything in service. But the moment that mattered most came after the speeches, after the ceremony, when it was just Sarah and Marcus sitting in Thor's favorite spot in the center's therapy garden. The old dog lay between them, his head on Marcus's lap, his body pressed against Sarah's leg. "You saved him," Marcus said quietly. "That first night when I brought him in dying, you could have refused, could have said it was too risky, too experimental, too likely to fail. But you didn't. You tried." "We tried," Sarah corrected. "Yumi, Jackson, the team. We all tried together. And we succeeded. Not just in saving Thor, but in changing the entire system. 5 years ago, military working dogs were disposable. Now they're valued, protected, cared for." Marcus stroked Thor's ears with infinite gentleness. All because one veterinarian refused to give up on one dog. "One extraordinary dog," Sarah amended, "with one extraordinary handler who wouldn't take no for an answer." Thor made a contented sound, neither agreeing nor disagreeing, just being present in the moment. And Sarah realized that was the true lesson. Not the dramatic rescue, or the medical innovations, or the policy changes, though all of those mattered. The real lesson was about showing up, about being present, about fighting for what you loved, even when the odds said you'd fail. 10 years after the poisoning, Thor passed away peacefully in his sleep at home, surrounded by everyone he loved. He was 14 years old, ancient for a Belgian Malinois, especially one who'd survived VX poisoning and multiple assassination attempts. But he'd lived every one of those years with purpose and dignity. The funeral was massive. Military honors, a 21-gun salute, hundreds of attendees. But the moment that broke Marcus was simpler. Havoc, now elderly himself, limping to Thor's flag-draped casket and resting his head against it for a long, silent minute. The dog who'd given his kidney to save his brother, saying goodbye one final time. "He lived a good life," Sarah told Marcus that night as they held each other. "A full life. He saved countless others and changed the world. Not many beings can say that." "I know. I keep expecting to hear him, to feel him beside me. He's been there so long I don't know how to exist without him." "You exist by continuing what he started, by running the center, by saving other canines, by proving every day that his legacy matters." Sarah took Marcus's hand. "He's not gone, not really. He's in every dog we treat, every handler we help, every protocol we develop. Thor's spirit is woven into everything we've built." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice to speak. The center Marcus and Sarah created went on to save thousands of canines over the following decades. New treatments were developed, new partnerships formed, new lives saved. The protocols first tested on Thor became the gold standard in military working dog medicine. His story was taught in veterinary schools used to train handlers shared, as proof that the impossible was only impossible until someone proved otherwise. Havoc lived another 3 years after Thor's death, serving as the center's senior therapy dog and teaching younger canines the same lessons Thor had taught him. When Havoc finally passed, he was buried beside Thor in the memorial garden. Two brothers reunited in the ground they'd defended so fiercely in life. Sarah and Marcus ran the center for 25 years before retiring, passing leadership to the next generation of veterinarians and handlers who'd been inspired by Thor's story. They'd saved over 15,000 canines in that time, prevented countless deaths, improved quality of life for warriors who'd given everything and asked for nothing. On their final day at the center, standing in the memorial garden where Thor and Havoc rested, Sarah took Marcus's hand. "We did good work here. We did great work. Work that mattered. Work that will outlast us." Marcus touched the memorial stone marking Thor's grave. "Thank you, brother, for everything." The stone was simple, engraved with Thor's name, his service dates, and a single line that captured everything he'd been. "Thor, Navy SEAL war hero, best friend. He taught us that loyalty has no limits, that service never ends, and that love conquers even death." That truth, that love conquers even death, became the foundation of everything the center represented. Every canine saved was a testament to it. Every handler given hope was proof of it. Every protocol developed honored it. Because one Navy SEAL had refused to let his partner die, and one veterinarian had refused to accept that saving him was impossible, the entire system had changed. Thousands of dogs who would have been declared hopeless now received care that saved their lives. Thousands of handlers who would have lost their partners now got more years together. The ripples from that first desperate night when Thor's heart stopped had become waves that transformed military working dog care forever. And somewhere Sarah liked to believe Thor and Havoc were running together again, young, strong, whole, still protecting their pack, still serving their mission, still proving that warriors never truly die as long as someone remembers what they fought for.